your computers. Okay, so muting everyone. And if you've got a question, pop it into the chat box. Maybe I'll answer it as we go through. And if we have time at the end and I haven't answered it, then I'll answer it, or I'll send it to a Facebook post to answer it online. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to keep this at 30 minutes, maybe 40 at the most, because, you know, this is the accelerated program. This is like, boom, we're in it, you're on it, you already know what to do. We don't need to spend a great deal of time going over the what foods to avoid and what foods to favor. You've got all that in your manual. You've been there, you've done it, and you're pros. So we're going to spend these 3 weeks kind of picking apart some and fine tuning some digestive nuances. And tonight is, I want to say hi to Sheila real quick. Hi, Sheila. Good, glad you made it. So tonight, our topic is all on digestive health / digestive strength. This is the week that this is the week that we're taking lots of action to regulate our digestive fire called Agni. We're going to dive into that in a moment. But for starters, just a reminder, if you haven't already kicked off your liver reset, today's the day. And if you're a day or a couple of days behind, you know, no sweat. You're going to get this recording. You've got it for the rest of your life. And you've got the manual and the supplemental materials for the rest of your days. So you can pick this up anytime. But in theory, we're all starting today with the aloe tonic. That's a 1/4 cup of aloe vera juice and only a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric, not a whole teaspoon of turmeric. And you know who I'm talking to. So a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. And what I've done, and I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but somebody in the recent 5-week program that we just finished up, the January program, said, oh, hey, I'm just making this in a large mason jar. And I thought to myself, well, that's brilliant. I wish I had thought of that. So that's what I've been doing in January. And then this time around, I'm making a large mason jar. And depending on the size of your jar, you can measure out, you know, your aloe vera juice, measure out your turmeric, and just put it in there and then shake that mother up. And then in the morning, when I wake up, the first thing I do is I pull the jar, I pour a little shot glass, and then I let it sit on the counter for a bit so it's not so cold. And I just stir it up and I toss it back. Since this is a 3-week program and we're diving in like head first, you're taking your liver formula tablets with the aloe tonic. Now in the 5 to Thrive, if you remember, we kind of spaced all this out a bit more, but ain't nobody got time to space things out. So it's the aloe tonic and the liver tablets twice a day. Just take them together, and morning and evening. And that's it. That's the big protocol for the week. And then of course I have to have this quote by Michael Pollan on the screen, because rather than going into all the details of what to favor and what to avoid, like I said, you already know that stuff. Bottom line for the next 3 weeks is eat real food, mostly plants, not too much, and mostly plants. So, and I might have that out of order, but you know what the saying is. It's all about plant diversity. And I talk about that to some degree in the Monday email, and we're going to go deeper into that next Tuesday at our Tuesday talk. This Tuesday talk is going to focus, the emphasis is on Ayurveda and how Ayurveda views imbalanced Agni and balanced Agni, kind of the difference between the two and what signs to look for. Next week, we're going to look at gut dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, if you will, which is a fancy way of saying your microbiome has been hijacked. We're going to look at gut dysbiosis from more of a conventional medical view. And then the 3rd week, we'll tie it all together. Okay, let's get this party started. One thing I want to add, I want to add this just to throw it out there, that Um, I say this frequently. I say it in 5 to Thrive, and I say it to clients all the time that I'm not that concerned with calories. There's a time and a place to be counting calories. Um, there's a time and a place, and I'm also not that concerned with the macronutrients, right? How much protein, how much fiber, how much carbohydrates, how much, I'm not interested in like counting all the numbers on a label, proteins, carbs, and fats, that sort of thing. There's a time and a place, and don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for that. But what I am primarily interested in with regards to women's health and avoiding the risk factors of that lead to diabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, increase in cholesterol, and cardiovascular disease is waist circumference. Now, you go online, you can Google waist to hip ratio, and that's absolutely one way to do it, but you can actually just discover your waist circumference and call it good. If you have, and this is inaccurate, it should be great. Well, it depends on how you're looking at it. If your waist circumference, and that means you're measuring around your navel, measuring around your belly button with a tape measure. If your waist circumference is less than 35 inches, then you're doing good. You're doing great. You want to stay in that range. When your waist circumference hits 35 inches or above, and those of you who work with clients privately and other modalities, this is something to keep in mind. That is a signal. It's a sign that, okay, we need to start addressing not necessarily weight loss by the numbers on the scale, but weight loss by slimming down the weight. When our waist circumference hits 35 or higher, and the number's different for men, when it hits 35 or higher, then we know that there's fat, there's adipose surrounding the liver, then there's adipose fat surrounding the abdominal organs, this visceral abdominal tissue. It's metabolically active. When there is an excess of adipose tissue around the organs, that we just know that there's inflammation. We just know there's inflammation. This visceral adipose tissue, this abdominal tissue releases fatty acids, inflammatory agents, hormones, leads to higher LDL, triglycerides, blood glucose, and blood pressure. And so I just want to, I know during the original 5 to Thrive, there a lot of people, a lot of women, they lost pounds, and that's great. That's really exciting. We've been programmed as women. I think we've been programmed in our culture to watch the numbers on the scale. I don't discount that at all. But more importantly, I'm not so concerned with the numbers on the scale, but the numbers around your waist. So do yourself this little exercise tonight, measure your waist, make a little mental note, maybe in your manual supplement of what it is, and then act accordingly. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that, but I just want to throw it out there because it's not something I mentioned in the 5 to Thrive, but it is something that I've put into the current 5 to Thrive, and it's something we talk about in a bit more detail. Okay, so now, hi, Melissa. Glad you made it. Okay, so now we're going to dive into Agni, A-G-N-I, Agni, like what's cooking, or rather what's not cooking. So the strength or the weakness of our digestive fire is the key component to determining our overall health and wellness. Modern science agrees. We're only as healthy as our microbiome, as there's no one size fits all anything really in Ayurvedic medicine. We're going to look under the hood tonight at the 4 types of Agni, determine which one best fits you. You're going to determine which one best fits you. And of course, if you've got questions, put them in the chat box or private message me. And then we're going to incorporate, I'll toss out some protocols to regulate your fire for optimum digestive power. Some of those protocols will be redundant. You have heard them before in the 5 to Thrive, but there's a few new ones as well. So Agni, A-G-N-I, is defined as fire. It's defined as our digestive fire. It's the power that digests our food It processes our emotions. It oversees the intelligence through the body and actually lends life its flavor. Now, Ayurvedic medicine actually identifies 40, that's 40 distinct subtypes of Agni in our body. Each is defined by specific physiological functions as well as location. So we're not going to dive into all of that because that's like way more than we have time for. But our primary Agni is called the Jatra Agni, and I should have put that on the slide. But those of you who are yogis and or yoga teachers, you might recognize that word Jatra from Jatra Parivartanasana, right? So that's when we're lying on our backs, knees are bent or legs are straight, and we're taking our legs from side to side. Jatra is the word for belly. And parivrita is to turn or to churn. So that pose is translated as belly churning or belly twisting pose. And it's a great way to stoke a digestive fire. So the primary digestive fire is called the Jatra Agni. I think of that as our base camp fire. That fire governs our digestion and our assimilation of food. Now, if you think about, we have, Ayurvedic medicine teaches that we have 40 distinct subtypes of Agni, and we have Agni in our cells, cellular fires that are constantly digesting and metabolizing, right? Absorbing and assimilating. We have Agni, we have a digestive fire, and this is metaphorical, but we have a metaphorical digestive fire in all of our tissues, right? We have digestive fire in our organs that is responsible for absorbing, assimilating, digestion. And we have Agni, digestive fire, that governs our sensory perception and the nourishment of specific tissues. When you think about sensory perceptions, just think for a moment of your sense organs, touch, sight, sound, smell, taste. All of these organs require some degree of processing, right? We're going to process the sounds that come at us and digest them or not digest them. We're going to process the smells that come to us. We're going to process the touch, how we allow ourselves to be touched, how we're touched, how we touch others, the clothes, the texture of the fabrics that we wear. Our skin is constantly digesting this. Okay, so not to get too esoteric, but it's fairly broad. So our Agni, the digestive fire, is either balanced or it's impaired, one of two ways. A balanced Agni looks like this. You have a normal appetite, just a hearty normal appetite. You're hungry for your meals 3 times a day, more often than not. A proper appreciation of taste. You have proper and regular elimination, and you can look at the Bristol stool chart to see what proper is. You want to be hitting a number 4 or a 5 on the Bristol stool chart, and you want to have regular elimination. Proper or balanced Agni shows up as absence of nausea. No nausea before or after eating. It presents as stable health, stable weight, stable blood pressure. It presents as a calm mind, steady energy, sound sleep, and even optimism is considered to be a sign of balanced Agni, balanced digestive fire. Impaired Agni, on the other hand, looks like emotional disturbances, when we are unable to process emotions. We get too amped up, or when we're unable to process emotions with a level of emotional intelligence, there's an impaired Agni there. Impaired Agni also looks like a low energy, fatigue, weakness, either a suppressed appetite, anorexia, not to be confused with anorexia nervosa, but anorexia meaning I don't have an appetite. When you have the flu, anorexia shows up. There's a lack of appetite, or an overactive appetite, indigestion, congestion, not just Not just like sinus congestion, although that is indicative of impaired Agni, congestion in the lungs, congestion in the lymph, congestion in the mind. These are all signs of impaired Agni. How does it happen? Well, it happens through poor diet. It happens through improper food combining, maybe an unsupportive lifestyle, emotional disturbances, mostly around food, eating too much, too late, too often. These will all impair our Agni. So let's dive into the nature of the impairment or the nature of the imbalance. So Ayurvedic medicine identifies 4 categories of Agni: low digestive power, high digestive power, variable digestive power or strength, and then steady. So the low digestive fire or digestive power is akin to having a campfire that is just coals and it's not hot enough to cook anything. So when you sit at the edge of said campfire with your vegan hot dog on the end of a stick and you hold it over the coals, it's going to take far too long to cook, and it's just like having food sitting in your belly, not being processed. It's having a dull and a sluggish appetite, or maybe there's not much appetite but still weight gain. Perhaps metabolism is slow, and there's a tendency towards being tired, towards being lethargic. There's often a lack of motivation to move or exercise or get out of bed in the morning. So this is often corresponding with kapha. And the kapha dosha is made of the earth and water elements. In Sanskrit, we call this low Agni manda Agni. And I'll give you some protocols in the next slide. So the high Agni, the sharp or the active, tikshna, which is interesting because tikshna means sharp, and it just sounds sharp when you say it. Tikshna Agni. That's a very high, very active digestive fire. If we go to the campfire metaphor, the Tikshna Agni is the raging bonfire. I mean, it's been raging for days and it's as high as the trees. And if you put your vegan hot dog on the end of a stick and hold it in the fire, it's going to burn to a crisp, rendering it completely inedible. This shows up in people as maybe having like a voracious appetite. These are the people who get hangry, easily frustrated, which gets taken out maybe on their dining companions or on the waiter. These somebody with a high sharp Agni is prone to eating late at night, especially if they stay up late past 10 or 11 and they've gone into their quote pitta time of night, pitta time of day between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Their digestive fire starts raging and they're like, must have food. I'm up, so feed me something. This type of digestive fire can lead to heartburn. It can lead to diarrhea, nausea, acid indigestion. And often, interestingly, there is an intense craving for sweets with this type of digestive fire. This Tikshna Agni, more often than not, corresponds with Pitta, the Pitta dosha. And then the variable Agni called Vishama Agni. This is the digestive fire that's very erratic. It's very irregular. It's uneven. The fire is super high one day and then it's almost out the next day. It's the hunger level in this individual comes, it goes, and frankly, it's caused by an imbalanced lifestyle. So regulating lifestyle, the Agni will follow. This individual with a variable digestive fire will eat at odd hours of the day. This individual will probably forget to eat, whereas the person with a high or sharp Agni, they will never forget to eat. Now, they might make a conscious decision not to eat because this mostly shows up with Pitta people and they're busy manifesting and creating and changing the world and running everybody's lives. And so they might make the conscious decision, I am working through lunch, do not disturb sign is on the door, don't even knock. because I'm working through lunch, and they will make a deliberate decision to skip a meal. Whereas the variable person, the Vata person, they will just frankly forget to eat until it's 8 o'clock at night. And they'll be like, I don't even remember when my last meal was. So there's just zero consistency in their meal times. And their symptoms and signs often show up as gas, distension, bloating, and constipation. Okay. So those are the 3 impairments. We'll get to steady in a moment because steady is where it's at. That's the gold standard. So let's take a look at some protocols. Now, if you remember back to 5 to Thrive, the original 5 weeks, we looked at a product called Trick-A-Two for low sluggish digestion. If your fire's been running, especially, it's post holidays, we're just kind of getting back on track after eating a lot of rich, heavy foods during the winter, maybe a lot of sweets, a lot of celebratory foods. And now it's time to start brightening up, lightening up, sharpening, so to speak, our digestive fire. We want to actually like blow on those coals, blow on those embers a bit to turn up our pilot light. Trick-A-Two is one product that will do that for you, absolutely, hands down. And you can go back and revisit your notes from the previous program. Trick-A-Two is the 3 pungents, and you can find it easily online. And you can drink it like a tea. You can take it in a capsule. One of my clients calls them her pepper pills, and they are hot. It is a hot, spicy formula. So that's one way that you can get your digestive fire stoked up. Another way, when it comes to eating your medicine and using something that you probably already have in your refrigerator or in your vegetable drawer, are ginger shooters. And these are so easy to make. You can make them in advance and you can have them on hand in your refrigerator. Take a knob of ginger, peel it, slice it into nickel-sized pieces, not too thick, but a decent looking nickel-sized piece. And if you want to make these in bulk, slice up a whole bunch of ginger, put them into a glass container, squeeze about a half a lemon over it, and add a few dashes of Himalayan salt. Cover it, shake it up, keep it in your fridge. And then that'll last you, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, maybe a week. And then before you eat your meal, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes before a meal, grab a slice of ginger and pop that baby back, and whoo, it will make your nose water, make your eyes water, and it will light your fire, to be sure. So if Manda Agni, if that slow, heavy digestion is what you're struggling with right now, this is a very easy and accessible way to get those juices rolling. You can make it to order, of course, but I'm all about finding ways to make life easier wherever possible. I think most of you are familiar with CCFT, cumin, coriander, and fennel tea. This is an excellent remedy. Again, ingredients you probably already have in your kitchen cupboard. This is an excellent remedy for that really high, sharp digestion. Do you remember what that's called? That's your Tikshna Agni, and that's mostly with our Pitta people, right? The Pitta babes on the screen. And if you remember back to the original program, there's another formula called Avipatikar, which is just a fun one to say, Avipatikar Churna, which means it's a powder, and you can get that online, very easily accessible online. And Avipatikar is what we take, we drink it in water before or after a meal, and it helps with heartburn. It helps normalize acid levels. And again, you can find that in your notes from the previous program. But the CCFT, super easy, great way to drink your medicine. You can make a thermos of this and just sip it throughout the day between lunch and dinner or between breakfast and lunch. You can make a really strong cup of tea and have it after lunch. If you're having sharp Agni, you're having that like fiery digestion, this is a great remedy to just roll with for a few weeks. Get your digestive fire kind of tamped down a little bit. The beautiful thing about these 3 spices is they work synergistically together to cool the body and to cool inflammation in the body, but but it won't put your fire completely out, right? Because we don't ever want to like blow the fire out. So this is really simple to make. And I've added these options in here, mangista, which is a beautiful red, it's a plant, but we use the root in Ayurvedic medicine most often. And again, it's something that you can get online. Licorice also you can get online. If you do the mangista, you can get it in what's called cut and sifted, which is kind of the rough, chunky parts, or you can just get it in powder form. Either way, you can stir 1/4 teaspoon of the mangista into your CCF tea and drink it that way. Mangista is very cooling to the blood and cleaning, said to clean the lymph system. So it's excellent for pitta constitutions, people who struggle with inflammation and too much heat. Fair warning though, it's very, very red. It's also called madder root. And so it's used to dye fabric. So if you don't brush your teeth after you drink the tea and you drink this tea with mangista every day for a number of days or weeks, your teeth will start to turn pink. So make sure you brush your teeth. Hi, Cooper. Good to see that big dog. Licorice, you can get licorice in powder form, or you can get it in kind of the hard parts, and you can just put a 1/4 teaspoon of licorice into the tea. Licorice is another excellent herbal remedy, herbal aid for acidic digestion and indigestion. It's demulcent, it's cooling, it's soothing, and it's an excellent herb that's used in many formulas to help heal the digestive tract, particularly when we're thinking about leaky gut and IBS and things like that. Okay, I'm obviously not going to be 30 minutes. So if you need to log off, I understand. And then, but we're close. So then the third of the impaired digestive fires that we will talk about is the variable Agni, right? And that's the Vishma Agni. This is mostly showing up with people who have a predominance of Vata in their constitution, or they're in a very Vata, what we call Vata vitiating or Vata aggravating lifestyle. Maybe that's the career they've chosen. Maybe it's just, external extenuating circumstances in their life that have them kind of like burning the wick at both ends and very distracted and very disjointed and kind of all over the map. So really, as I said earlier, with Vishma Agni, with this variable digestion, it's on one day, it's off the next day. It really is it's really caused by an imbalanced lifestyle. So what this person, if this sounds like you, really the best thing you can do is delegate meal times, and then you can sit, stay, and chew. Right? Just sit, like, just like you're training a puppy, sit, stay, chew, but because it's so common for people with this type of constitution or this type of lifestyle. I've been there for decades in the hospitality industry, to eat on the run, to eat standing up, to just grab something when they're going from A to B and never actually like take the time to sit down and stay seated, because there's something to do or someone to take care of, or somebody else, something or someone is distracting them. Put your phones away, put your laptops away, clear your table of laundry and bills and mail, and make a pretty table, sit your ass down, stay put until you're finished with your meal, and chew your food. That's the best thing. That is the simplest remedy. And I know it sounds pedestrian and elementary, but it truly is remarkably profound to practice that if this variable gas, bloating, distension is part of the picture. Having said that, think back to 5 to Thrive. We talked about this herbal formula, spice formula called Hingva stock. And Hingva stock is a powder, or you can get it made into tablets or capsules. It's easily available online, and Hingva stock is a combination of kind of spicy and sweet herbs and spices that is excellent for reducing distension, reducing bloating, and reducing gas. It's also a bit of an appetite stimulant because it's got some spice to it. And Hingva stock can be eaten, it can be mixed with honey and then eaten straight from the spoon, or it can also be poured or stirred into hot water and sipped on as a tea to help stimulate the appetite. Because remember, this is the individual that sometimes they're hungry, sometimes they're not. They're just kind of all over the map. We want to regulate the appetite. When we regulate the fire, we'll regulate the appetite. It'll all work together, but you got to regulate your meals. Regulate your meals first and foremost. So then we come to steady, and the steady Agni is called Sama Agni. And you'll recognize that if you've been studying yoga, Sama as Samastitihi, right? Sama is steady, it's steady standing. Samastitihi is steady standing, or Samavriti Pranayama, right? That steady breath practice of breathing in for 4, pausing for 4, breathing out for 4, pausing for 4. So Sama is steady, Sama is sane, Sama is like, yeah, this is the gold standard. This is where we want to be. This is desirable. When our Agni is steady, when we have the Sama Agni going on, our food is easily digested with no side effects. This is very, very rare, particularly in our culture, especially our overworked and overextended lives. Finding Sama Agni is rare. And when it shows up, it's like, that's how I'm supposed to feel when I eat. It's I've eaten a meal, I've been present for it, I've been mindful for it. And lo and behold, 30 minutes and an hour later, I'm not in a food coma. I'm not feeling lethargic and I don't need a nap. I'm not, hyperacidic or having indigestion or reflux. It's really a lovely place to be. But it's hard to maintain just because our lifestyle and the easy access to foods that aren't so great at feeding our tissues. But Sama Agni is the gold standard, and we know that we can get there. All right, so these 4 types of Agni, right? You've got the slow, the sluggish, the Manda Agni. You have the high, the super high bonfire, the Tikshna Agni, which is related mostly with Pitta dosha. You have the variable, distracted Agni, which corresponds with Vata, and then you have Sama Agni. So these 4 types of Agni are really, they're just a tool. They're very, we feel them, they're very real, but they are a tool for distinguishing healthy versus impaired digestive strength. You might have one day and one the next week. It can be kind of that all over. Typically speaking, though, if you have a strong Pitta constitution, chances are you're going to tend towards having a really high digestive fire. If you have a strong Vata constitution, chances are good you're going to lean towards gas and bloating and these erratic meal times. Chances are good if you have a lot of Kapha in your constitution, you're going to tend towards being a little heavier, a little more sluggish, a slower metabolism, and slower to digest your food. That's all normal. We're not trying to change your constitutional makeup, but we do want to ensure that even if you're strong Kapha, even if you're strong Vata, strong Pitta, that your digestive strength is steady and it's healthy, not impaired. Because when we have impaired digestion, that's when Ama shows up. And that's what we're going to explore on a deeper level from a conventional perspective next week. What Ama looks like, what toxicity looks like, what it feels like, what gut dysbiosis, what it means when we break that word apart. What is leaky gut exactly? Why do we have it? How does that even show up? Ama. The bottom line, though, is our digestive strength is unregulated. So knowing these 4 types of Agni, it's a tool for distinguishing the power or the lack of your digestive strength. They allow us, knowing of these 4 types of Agni, give us the opportunity to identify influence that might have disturbed your fire. It becomes easier and easier to connect the dots between what you ate and how you feel. It also gives us the opportunity to increase our awareness, apply the wisdom of Ayurveda. It gives us the opportunity to truly begin eating our medicine, which you've already been doing, but now we're just going to take it to the next level and begin to heal your gut. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what's in the chat box. Who should drink CCFT? All types, just Pitta types. Okay, so anybody, I mean, okay, it depends, really, it depends. That's classic Ayurveda answer, always, it depends. And I don't want to be flippant, but it really does depend. Anybody can drink CCFT. That said, Vata people don't need to be drinking it all year round, because these 3 spices together, they also act as a diuretic. And that's great. That's especially if we're detoxing. The CCFT is a classic recipe that's included in Ayurvedic cleanses all the time. I include it in the Ayurvedic cleanse that I lead. It's great for detoxing, and because it's a diuretic, and urine and the urinary channel is one of the 5 primary pathways of elimination. So when you think about Vata being air and space and leaning towards being dry, cold, rough, all those qualities of Vata, CCFT is great in moderation. I wouldn't drink it all the time, all year round. And I would not drink much of it in the winter. Spring, yeah, because we're trying to eliminate maybe excess water weight or excess kapha that we've gathered over the winter months when we've been hibernating and eating all of our casseroles. So that said, Pitta is going to benefit the most from CCFT. Kapha will benefit from CCFT because, again, it does act as a diuretic when you drink a lot of it. Vata will benefit because it is so good for gas, and it is so good for bloating. It is so good for regulating digestive fire that you just want to do so in moderation. So this is where, like, for example, the licorice would come in handy, because licorice is a demulcent and licorice is lubricating. Licorice would be a good addition to the CCFT for someone with a dominant Vata constitution. And based on who asked the question, and I know your constitution, get your hands on some licorice. Because I know you'll benefit from that. You can use the powder. I actually have in my home apothecary here licorice, almost like sticks. It's like pieces of bark that have been shaved off the stem, and they're it's about that long, and you could just grab a stick of the licorice and put it in your tea and drop it in, and that would be a nice complement to the diuretic aspect of the CCFT. Revisit the difference in the trifilas. So yeah, that's interesting, Melissa. That response that your body had to the Banyan trifila. I like them both. So there are all kinds of, I mean, there's so many fantastic brands out there and companies out there that make trifila. Organic India makes trifila. I think the Himalayan Institute makes trifila. Banyan Botanicals, of course. MAPI, the Maharishi Ayurveda products. I'm sure there's much more. I mean, you can find trifila like over the counter now in mainstream stores. So, we're each unique, and we're each going to respond differently. We metabolize differently. We have very different specific needs biologically and physiologically. I respond really well to the MAPI. I used to take the Banyan all the time, and I sold it, and I think it's a great product. I have grown to really love the MAPI. They add rose to their formula. Trifla, of course, is just 3 ingredients. If you come across a triphala that has more than 3, I just encourage you to really explore the additional ingredients and find out what they are and why they've been added. Triphala should only be the trikatu, or the harataki, bibitaki, and amalaki. It should just be those 3 ingredients. Now, MAPI adds rose to their triphala,
Yes.
which is cooling, it's astringent, it's soothing to the colon, and in my opinion, it makes for a very nice addition for long-term use.
Yes.
So yeah,
I couldn't believe the difference, and how,
really,
because I usually with the MAPI, like I never feel anything. Like I feel good. I feel like, I'm absorbing, any supplements better. I'm, relieving myself better. But with the Banyan, it was like day 2, and I was like, what is going on? I felt like I was on fire.
oh
And
gosh.
it was just such a big difference. I thought it was, I mean, like I wasn't sick where I needed to go to the hospital, but I just was like, wow, there's a huge difference between the two. And I had just asked you that before I started taking it. And when you mentioned, the cooling effects that the MAPI brand has with the rose, I was like, okay, I see what she's talking about now.
That's
But
interesting.
yeah, I just thought it was super interesting, and I was really intrigued by the difference.
Yeah, well, as was I, for sure. And thank you for sharing, being honest and candid about your experience and sharing that. Yeah, the classic way to take triphala is to drink it, is to get the powder. The MAPI does not, not that I'm aware of, they do not sell the powdered herb. Banyan does, and I know there's several other places online where you can just get those 3 herbs ground into a powder. That is the traditional and classic way to take it, as a tea. You stir it into hot water and drink it, and it's repugnant. I mean, it's just like, really, I mean, it's tough. But what's interesting is that I think it's Dr. Lad who is quoted as saying, that the taste of triphala is not pleasant, but if you drink it as medicine instead of taking the capsules, eventually you'll acquire a taste for it, and it will cease being so unpleasant. And when it reaches that stage, you're balanced. You've successfully balanced your body. So
I think I'm going to try the powder next, just to give it a shot, because
yeah.
I since 5 to Thrive, I haven't stopped taking the triphala, and I noticed just a huge difference. And my husband and I both do it, but I think I'll try the powder, give it a shot.
Yeah, I think in another way, in fact, since we're on it, I'll throw this other option out. So taking it as a powder, like I said, is classic, and a lot of Ayurvedic Vaidyas, which the doctors will say, put a half a teaspoon in hot water, stir it up in the morning, and then just let it sit, and then drink that concoction at night. And then there'll still be some residue at the bottom of your cup. Add more hot water to that, let it sit overnight, and then finish it off in the morning, and then start over again. So it's kind of like this kind of, leapfrogging of taking the triphala, drinking the triphala in that way. Another traditional way of consuming triphala is in ghee, a medicated ghee, and it's very simply triphala ghee, and you can buy that online. I think MAPI, actually, I do think MAPI sells triphala ghee. You can make it, but it's a process, and I don't make it at my house. I mean, I have dogs. I'm not going to make medicine for people at my house with, pit bull hair flying around the kitchen. So, but I mean, but you can buy medicated triphala ghee at many different outlets online. A life hack, though, is if you're going to drink the triphala, Melissa, is when you make the triphala tea, air quotes tea, add like an 1/8 or a 1/4 of a teaspoon of ghee to that tea. Stir it up, let the ghee melt, and then drink it with the ghee in it. Because ghee and honey are like those are the 2 best carriers of getting medicine into the tissues of the body. And so ghee is gold, babe. So that's
Ghee is gold.
Yeah, ghee is gold.
Thank you. I
Okay,
appreciate
yeah.
your help with that.
Of course, I'm glad. Thanks for being on, and I appreciate you having the opportunity to stay on. So
Of
it's
course.
yay, good. It's 7:45. I really thought I could try to keep this to 30 minutes. I want to respect everybody's time, and the Winter Olympics are on, and oh my gosh, there's so much going on, and it's late, and it's bedtime, and since this is a fast program, I want these Tuesday talks to be kind of like boom, get in there and then move on. So thanks for bearing with me, and I'll do better next week to keep it tight. But there's so much fascinating stuff about the gut and the gut biome to get into. But we'll do our best. So, okay, you've got your outline for the week. You drink your aloe tonic, you take your liver support tablets. Be sure you're having a daily bowel movement at least once a day, if not more, because since we're starting it hot and heavy with the liver formula and the aloe tonic, we're stimulating our livers like right out of the gate. And remember, the excess junk and funk that we're stimulating to leave the liver wants to push that out through the colon. And so our colons need to be like, we need to be like sweeping sweeping all every day, just making sure that you're having a really good high quality and good quantity of bowel movement. And if that's not happening, you can up your beets, you can up your apples, you can up your fiber intake, you can do ground flaxseed, you can add 1, maybe 2 tablespoons of fiber to your food, add it to your fruit salad in the morning, add it to a drink. But lots and lots of fiber will help with that. You can also increase your triphala intake. You can take up to 3. More than 3 is getting a little like, I'd rather you increase fiber in other areas. And that's it. Okay. All right. Yay, babes. It's so good to see you all again. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Thanks for doing this. This is such a good idea, Molly. Thank you. I'm so excited. Oh, good. There you are. Okay, everybody, have a great night. Go get some winter games if your time zone allows for it, or if it's not time for bed, and then get some sleep, plenty of sleep, and plenty of hydration. And put your questions in the Facebook page or message me privately if you've got something on your mind. I'm all yours for the next 3 weeks. Okay.
Woo, good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Lisa.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.